Chapter 955, Ancient Wraith. For's pupils dilated, as though she was trying to absorb more light into her eyes to better see Zio's current circumstances. Meanwhile, the light in front of her suddenly exploded with a flash several times more blinding than old-school cameras, blanketing the surroundings with whiteness. Following that, her finger swiped on a page on Leymano's travels as black fog soared from her feet, enveloping her entire body. The thick black fog quickly transformed into palm-sized illusory bats as they flew in different directions of the underground hall. This was Wings of Darkness, which the moon had recorded in Leymano's travels. Its original use was to enhance one's speed and bestow temporary flight capabilities while producing a horde of blood-sucking bats to attack the enemy. However, Force didn't use it for this purpose. Instead, she used it as a prop for her performance. After the illusory bats flew away, the space where Force stood was already empty. At some point in time, she had appeared more than 10 meters away. After subconsciously escaping and defending herself, Force could finally calm down as she hurriedly cast her gaze onto Zio, who had turned abnormal. However, Zio only appeared to have slightly disheveled blonde hair with malt-colored skin due to her continuous forays out in the sun. Besides looking somewhat blank, as though she was surprised as to why her friend had such a huge reaction, she didn't show any signs of being influenced by wraiths or ghosts. "What happened?" Zio asked warily. Force narrowed her eyes without directly replying to her. Flipping through Leymano's travels' pages, she asked, "Zio, how tall are you?" Seemingly realizing something, Zio answered, 152. "Isn't that so?" Just as she said that, Force's fingers slid across the notebook's page, which was filled with symbols and magical labels. Silently, a holy light swirling with fire plummeted down from above. The unadulterated and bright light instantly enveloped Zio, before rippling outward with sunlight. As the blazing light stabbed into Force's eyes, she saw the hall collapse and the surrounding space shatter like glass. This feeling was gone in a flash as Force realized that she was still in her original spot. She had yet to flee. That was an illusion. She hurriedly turned to the side and saw Zio looking at the damaged region of the heavy door. Force deliberated for a moment and asked, "Zio, how tall are you?" Zio glanced at her and angrily said, "Stop asking such inane questions." "Phew, she's real." Force heaved a sigh of relief as she quickly described her encounter to Zio. After a few seconds of thought, Zio used her lantern-wielding hand to nudge Force's arm. "Let's retreat. Perhaps the closer we are to that door, the easier it is to hallucinate." "Yes, that's possible." Force nodded in agreement as she quickly moved back a few steps. Following that, she surveyed the area and asked in puzzlement, "Why can't we find any wraiths or ghosts here?" Such an environment should be something that they enjoy. Zio was perplexed as well. She then did a careful observation before landing her gaze on the blob of sunlight floating above Force's head. "Try extinguishing it," she suggested. Force came to a realization as she immediately dispelled the light. Silent darkness blanketed the area and ruled the underground hall once more. Only the lantern's faint yellow light put up a resistance against all of this. Then, Force saw two figures in her spirit vision. They were rather close to the bronze door. One was a female with coiled hair, wearing a knight's trousers and a garish shirt for ease of movement. The other was a man wearing silver-black armor as he held a sword that was almost snapping due to rust. The former's face was a blur as it kept wandering between the door and where Force and Zio arrived. The latter was loitering beside the door, muttering something. "These are the two ancient wraiths." Force nudged Zio and said with a suppressed voice, "I see spirit bodies." "I see them as well. They aren't hiding at all." Zio curved her back as she readied herself for a fight. Force hurriedly nudged her. "Don't be hasty. We aren't sure that they're the targets." She attempted to take 3 steps forward, but the two relatively blurry figures didn't even look at her. Force thought and suddenly said, "Ma'am, what are you doing?" She had heard of stories in other mysticism circles that wraiths, shadows, and other higher-level spirit body creatures could be communicated with. However, she regretted it the moment she said that. This was because communication didn't allow her to achieve her goal. There was no way she could persuade the other party to kill themselves and hand over the cursed item and remnant spirituality of an ancient wraith. Just as Fors was considering if she should launch a direct attack, the lady in the garish shirt and knight's trousers replied with a flat tone, "I'm searching for my husband. He's a guard here. Communication is really possible." Fors pressed out of curiosity, where did he go? At this moment, Zio approached as she wore a look of extreme vigilance. The blurry-figured lady answered blankly. "He's a guard here. He told me that magical power seeps out from behind the door, corrupting his teammates. He got me to leave as quickly as possible with a messenger. He said that he would ensure that I escaped safely, but I don't wish for that. I want to leave with him. After sending off the messenger, I returned midway and returned underground. But I can't find him. With the age of this castle exceeding the present epoch, the last defender has definitely transformed into an ancient wraith. This lady's story has moved me. I really can't bear to attack her." For's mind whirled as she carefully took a few steps and circled around the ancient female wraith and approached the bronze door. This time, she and Zio didn't suffer any more hallucinations. This seemed to imply that her encounter was subconsciously created by the lady. A distance from the silver-black armored knight with a rusty sword, Fors attempted to ask, "Sir, what are you doing?" The knight paused and said with a humming voice, "I'm guarding this door of blackness. I need to ensure that my wife has escaped safely. If you meet her, tell her that her knight will fight for her to the very last moment." "Ah, door of blackness. It's clearly a bronze door. Wait, what did he say?" "He said that he's guarding the door to ensure that his wife can safely escape. Isn't this the other half of that woman's story which she described? This is her husband." Fors was taken aback, as she kept looking back and forth between the two ancient wraiths. The lady wearing a garish shirt and knight's trousers slowly approached the bronze door before returning to the middle of the hall repeatedly. As for the silver-black armored man, he was patrolling about the door with a rotting sword in hand. At times, they would pass by without noticing each other. Such a scene must have gone on for at least 1,500 years, or even longer. Fors commented silently as she turned to glance at Zio. She realized that her friend's eyes were already welling with tears. What an easily touched person. Fors couldn't help it as she shouted at the female wraith, "Look at the door. Your husband has been there all along." The lady slowed down her pace and first glanced at Fors before casting her gaze at the heavy door. Her blank gaze penetrated the knight, landing behind him. "Why can't I find him?" The wraith repeated her words and repeated her actions. Fors felt an inexplicable sense of sorrow, and just as she was about to shout again, she saw the knight turn to look at her and Zio. He shouted, "Who are you?" Just as he said that, the female wraith cast her gaze at Zio and Fors again. Fors immediately felt her thoughts slow down as a coldness quickly formed inside her body and rippled out, freezing her flesh and joints. As for Zio, she too was suffering from the same condition. The area around the lantern dimmed significantly. At this moment, 2 bolts of lightning lit up in Zio's eyes. This made the wraith let out a painful cry as his body turned faint. Zio instantly escaped from her frozen state and threw out the triangular blade in her hand towards the female wraith. Bolts of illusory lightning swirled around the triangular blade's tip, stabbing straight into the lady. Psychic lashing. The female wraith screamed as her body turned faint. Fors instantly snapped awake as she slid her fingers across the open Leimano's travels. Life seemed to immediately gather from the surrounding shadows, turning into a pitch-black chain that restrained the male wraith to the ground, sealing off his mouth. Abyss chains. Meanwhile, Zio rushed out, and with an illusory brand in hand, she stamped it on the female wraith. With her holding back the female wraith, Fors' actions became more composed. She flipped through Leimano's travels and slid her fingers. Silver lightning that branched out and blasted out of thin air, smiting the male wraith and turning the area into a lightning hellscape. Finally, a holy pillar of light that had flames swirling around it appeared. It enveloped the male wraith and completely purified him. With one enemy taken down, Fors immediately turned and dealt with the female wraith with Zio. She didn't hold back on using powers from Leimano's travels. She came up with wise combinations of them, and using Zeos suppression, she switched between restrainment powers and offense from time to time. Soon, they finished off their target. Everything fell silent as Force heaved a sigh of relief. She then looked at the battlefield with a look of disbelief. Is that it? She originally imagined that two ancient wraiths had unique powers, and with their higher levels, they weren't something subsequent's 5 Beyonders could deal with. However, she realized that everything happened rather smoothly. This made her truly realize how godly Leymano's travels was. She also began looking forward to the next sequence as a scribe. Zio was somewhat astonished, as she thought for a few seconds. It's no wonder someone told me that, beneath the level of demigods, the number of Beyonders, their cooperation, and usage of powers are more important than the sequence. Just as she said that, she heard knocking sounds resonate. It broke the silence of the hall, and it came from behind the bronze door.